Welcome back, ladies. What I want to do tonight, we're going to do open discussion again. Since we're heading into December, one of the things I wanted to get from you guys, first and foremost, some ideas. Like last year for our coaching Zooms, what we did for December is we did different themes. So, what I wanted to do is get some ideas from you guys. Like we did an ugly sweater, ugly shirt coaching Zoom last year. We did, I think, a pajama Zoom last year.
A hat.
Oh yeah. So let's talk about that. Throw some ideas out for themed Zooms that you guys think would be fun for the holiday season. You want to do the Christmas hat one?
Yeah, I like the hat. Yeah, I
Okay,
like the hat.
awesome.
That was fun.
The Christmas hat one. I always like ugly sweater, ugly shirt one, of course.
I guess I don't have any ugly sweaters.
You know what I do? I go to the thrift store and I go to usually at the thrift stores, they have them grouped together under all the holiday attire.
Okay.
And I just go through and I look for the most god awful 1981 Christmas sweater that I can find is what I do. So do you guys want to do an ugly Christmas sweater one again? Would that be fun? Okay, cool. What else did we do last year, Kathy? We did like a cocktail party one, didn't we?
Right.
We had okay. Do you guys? And it's okay if you don't drink, but do you guys want to have a Zoom? I don't know how, if don't finish off your bottle while we're in Zoom, hopefully it might get crazy.
Or it could be coffee, tea, just bring a beverage of choice.
Coffee, tea, wine, champagne, whatever you want. Do you guys want to do one of those?
Sure.
Okay.
We did the beverages and the pajamas at the same time last year, I thought.
Did we do that on New Year's? Was that right before New Year's one?
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys want to do PJs and cocktails? December PJs and cocktail one? Okay.
PJs and beverages. Hot chocolate's good if you want hot chocolate or that kind of stuff. Apple cider, whatever you want to bring. And if you bring it in a fancy cup, that's okay too.
Yes, or a Christmas mug. If you guys have any other ideas that you think of and you want to do it, post it in the group. I don't know how many coaching Zooms we have because we really have a cram-packed December. I kind of gave you guys a little leeway in November, but December, like we got it going on, right? Lots of connections, lots of group readings, just all kinds of stuff. So, and that's going to be fun. The other thing I want to touch base on is, and I'll make a post about it and I'll add everyone. We want to go ahead and get everybody signed up for the Sip and Sleepers. That's a good one. We want to get everybody signed up that wants to participate in the Secret Santa with the kiddos. So I'm going to do a post, and in order to be paired, you have to sign up under that post. I have to see you say me, I want in under that post, because then I have to go in and draw names to get everybody paired. Lee, I don't care that you're in Australia. You may not get your package until March, especially if it's from me. But I got to do a drawing tonight too. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So make sure if you want signed up for the Secret Santa Exchange, which is a really cool thing. Who did it last year? Who did it with us last year? Debbie, Antonetta, Bernie, Angie, and Rebecca. It's a neat thing, isn't it? Like, could you feel your person's kid come in and kind of guide you to what they wanted you to get? Awesome. So that's what we do. For those of you that haven't participated in it, I think Caroline participated last year too, I want to say. But what we do is we ask the person's kid that we're paired with to come in, and either you can do it while you're in the store and you just feel into it and let them guide you. It's really a neat thing, or you can ask them. And I think Kathy asked about Rebecca's boy about, and she kept getting, like, she was like, no, that's not it. And he kept saying, yeah, like that is it. And Kathy kind of argued with him, and finally, like, Kathy's like, okay, fine. So it'll look kind of like that sometimes, like you're like, no, but I want to get her this. And they'll be like, I already told you, look, here it is, here it is, here it is. So we'll talk more about that, but be sure and get signed up if you want to do that. It's a really neat, fun way to get to Christmas shop with your kids. And not only that, it kind of sets your open awareness to letting your own child in to help you with Christmas shopping for people in your family that you're buying for. Okay. So, yeah. So that's kind of, and I know, who was it? Lee, you've already gotten some stuff from your girl, haven't you? About who she wants to buy for or what that looks like. Was it you that had that? Somebody had that already. So that's something I want to practice too with you guys, is you guys sitting and tapping in and doing the first thought thing, right? First thought thing. I did it yesterday with Leap with my parents, because I was like, what do you get, like, your old parents who really just buy anything they want for themselves, like, and my parents travel in their fifth wheel. Like, it's not like I can buy them wall hangings or, like, what do you get these people? And so I just asked him, and he told me bracelets, and I was like, okay. So I went on the Amazon and I tried to maneuver that whole thing, which was interesting. But so I want to be able to, you guys to be able to practice that too. So yeah. Okay, so that was the two housekeeping things. Besides, I want to let you guys know on Tuesday evening, we do have Michael Christopher. He's a new presenter that's coming in this year. Rachel Pearson highly recommended him to me. He is going to be, I love it when I can always bring at least one male medium in. We had a male medium last year, and it was really refreshing, wasn't it, to get some male energy up in here? So Michael Christopher is going to be doing gallery reading on Tuesday. I want, for those of you that haven't been in with us before, we have a lot of gallery readings scheduled. So I want you to be sure when you come in, make sure you ask your kiddos. Generally, Leaf may pop in a little bit, Sophie may pop in a little bit, but generally our kiddos take up a very brief amount of time, simply because they know that we're connected, and Leaf and Sophie especially are like, you guys don't need it. So they may pop in, but they usually don't take up a lot of time. Just know that if your kiddo does not pop in with Michael, there's a slew of other mediums coming in that they have the opportunity, right? So, and it may also be more than just your kiddo popping in. If you have parents in spirit, they could pop in. Last year, one of my friends that passed in October popped in a very vocal way with what I would recognize him with, which was his shadow, which was hot girls and cocaine. I was like, really, is this what you're showing these people that I basically work for? So that's how he popped in, because that was the stuff we were like trying to get him away from, and he inevitably passed. And so it was like, okay, thanks there, Brad.
Well, and it's important too, heading up to our gallery readings, to talk to your child and ask them to come through. Say to them, there's going to be a gallery reading today. I would love it if you came through and gave me a message. So it's always good to, let them know that you're there and you expect to see them.
Yes. And I've never had a reading with Michael, so I'm going to be new to him as well. I love getting to sit with mediums that I haven't sat with before and just see their different process and see how they do it. So I think it's going to be really cool to have him. Then we have Thursday. So this is a busy week, guys, right? Because we have a couple of things this week. Thursday, we have Robert Schwartz. Are you guys familiar with Robert? Great, amazing guy. I've read so many books that I get all their titles. Tell me what he wrote. Debbie, do you know what he wrote? Debbie Johnson? Who knows what he wrote? I'm having total...
Something about the soul. Something about the soul. I always forget the title.
Rebecca, you know?
It's the soul plan, right? or no?
I think it's about soul planning. So I think it's Journey of Souls, Destiny of, he has 3 books. And I've read all of them, but I've also read 8,000 other spiritual books, and they all kind of just meld into my brain.
It's your soul's plan.
Your Soul's Plan.
Oh, yeah.
Rebecca's the winner.
Look at
I think Pit Stick wrote Your Soul's Journey. I can't even remember.
Yeah.
Or is that, I don't even know. Anyway, for those of you that aren't familiar with him, he has done so much research and so much work. He's a past life regressionist. He's a PLR guy. And so he was going in, and his books, this is what his point of research was. And so he goes in and he would do PLRs or hypnotism with like people who could channel, which everybody can channel, just so you know, but people who were kind of known channelers, some of them, and one of them actually channels Jesus. Amazing information that came about afterlife from Jesus, like amazing stuff. So he's a really, really mild-mannered man. He's very, very nice. He presented, there it is, Debbie's got it, Soul's Plan. Yeah, Rebecca was on point with that. And he has 2 other books that are really good too. But sometimes I post his like clippets of his YouTubes and stuff. Great guy though. He's going to be with us on Thursday evening. Then Saturday, Kathy's going to do Oracle deck pulls. So she'll be on at, what did we say, Kath? 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
She'll be on at 1 o'clock, and she'll pull cards specifically for you guys. So that'll be fun. And then Sunday, we have another gallery reading with Marie Hess. Who knows Marie? Marie's great. Love her so much. She's amazing. She gets super detailed information. So Marie will be in with us on Sunday. So we have like, for the next week, we are just jam-packed, guys. And you know, I do this and I'm like, I don't want to jam pack them, but then I'm like, oh, but this one would be good to add in. And I'm like, I also want you to get your money's worth and get, you know, I can get everybody in front of you that we want to. So I'm sorry, not sorry that I jam packed your December, but the whole point, right, is to feel really, really connected and to be able to focus on their presence. And we do that by facilitating the connection and the information that we get in front of you so that you don't have to battle your ego quite as much. So I hope that you're all okay with a packed schedule. And of course, if you have to miss or you have to pop in late with readings, if you're popping in late, make sure you're muted when you come in. That way we don't break their energy flow. I mean, most of them can, you know, pop back and forth anyway, but make sure you're muted when you come in. And well, really with anybody, make sure you're muted when you come in. If you come in late, usually you all do that and you're all quiet anyway. And also do go back and watch the recordings, even if you miss a group reading, because your child still may come in. I actually, last year, it was quite fascinating to me. I had clients that were not in the program that their children came in, and I recognized their children from working with them. And so that was new for me. So even if you can't be there for a reading, always go back and watch the recording because your kiddo may have popped in. Of course, if Kathy and I or anybody else recognizes your kiddo and you're not there, I usually take notes through the group readings. That way, if something doesn't hit for somebody here, I can post it and people can claim whoever it is. Also, I think that Michael he may or may not explain this. So just so those of you that know, has everybody been in a group reading or a gallery reading in here? No? Okay. So something that happens, I have a little bit of a headache today. Something that we see happens a lot of times in a group setting, the kids will piggyback off each other. So it may be that they say a sign or a validation that hits for more than one of you. That doesn't mean that it's not that doesn't mean that it's not Becky's kid and that it's only Rita's kid. It may be that both of those boys have something significant that hits for both of you. And so they piggyback off each other and they come in. And then one of them inevitably will usually step in front of the other one and they'll go a little bit further. But But if it hits for you, it hits for you, and it can hit for more than one person. So that's called piggybacking. And I tell you that because I don't know if Michael will explain that. And some of you have not been in group readings before. What you want to do though, generally as a rule, if I hear something that hits for Leaf, I won't off the first hit say, oh, that's Leaf because of the piggybacking thing. So I'll wait a couple more things in. I mean, I know some of you have been on like lives. I've popped in on one of Rachel's live, and there were people that knew it was Leaf before I ever took him, because I'm like, okay, that could be him. Let's see what else he can throw out, because I don't want to take it if it's somebody else. So I know the initial thing is like, and it very well probably is, but make them work for it a little bit, guys. Make them draw you in a little bit more, right? Like, this is how we're fostering the reciprocal communication. Like, if we just hop on it, then they don't really have to give us a whole lot more. Make them work for it a little bit, So, and again, I say this stuff because some of you haven't been in group readings, and by all means, though, if it hits for you, don't not validate it, okay? Another thing is, most of the mediums don't want you to overshare with them. So when it hits, they may not want you to immediately say, oh, that hits and this is why, because that skews their objectivity, and then they know more information, and they don't generally want that information yet. Usually after the fact, they will say, who, how did that validate for you? Or we can go in and post how it validated, and we can get that information to them, because that information does help them after the fact. But so that's just some general things about group readings. And most of the time, how it will work is they won't care if you interrupt them, or they'll even ask, can anybody take that? Can anybody take that? And if you can take it, you can put in comment, or you can raise your hand up, or you can just unmute and say, I can take that. And just say, don't say anything else at that point. Just say, I can take that, because usually your person will keep giving you stuff after that. A lot of you've been in one-on-one medium readings. It's kind of the same thing, only there's going to be a group of us in there, which means kids are going to be literally lined up. Kids, people, parents, whoever wants to come, they're going to be lined up over there. So I'm really excited to start our group readings. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be a great experience. Does anybody have any questions about any of the housekeeping stuff I had to go over? No? Okay, let's talk Turkey Day. How'd we do? Who had pain purges? Raise your hand. Okay. Who leaned into presence like literally all day long? Okay. Who got, yeah, 6:30. Thanks, Bernie. Who felt presence, got lots of sign communications? Okay, Brenda, we're sending you lots of love, sis. I know it's been a week for you. If you need anything, holler, okay? Let's all send Brenda some big love. She sent her best friend, her sister best friend, off to the afterlife this week. So let's all send her some big love.
I'm having a rough time. We have no heat. We ran out of fuel. Now my power just went. So
are you having a storm?
No, we just had rain all day, but with having no heat, I plugged in the electric heaters, blew out all my power now.
Why are you out of heat?
Fuel oil, ran out of fuel oil.
That's not good on a Sunday, is it?
So no, and the guy don't come back until tomorrow. So I got to get a hold of my husband and let him know.
Okay, sis. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you popped in. Yeah, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, who got communications? Christine. Okay, good. So how do we feel like it went? Does anybody want to open up discussion about any of these things? Even the purges, the leading into presence?
I'll share what I kind of went through.
Okay, go for it.
Well, I actually came up with the flu on Thanksgiving, so I didn't get to
Um,
enjoy my Thanksgiving dinner. I was kicked out. But today actually, like I was just feeling, oops, sorry. I was just feeling
Okay.
kind of sad about it and everything.
Mhm.
And I just happened to go on my daughter's like messenger app,
Mhm.
and I found a voice memo from a couple years ago of her just saying, she was with her dad at the time saying, "Mommy, I love you and I'm okay." So it was kind of
So,
just like a sign.
yeah, well, and I believe that she nudged you to go on to Messenger, right?
Correct. Right.
So, and then I love that you brought this up because guys, this is a big, it's huge, but it's extremely subtle. And so we can think, oh, like I'm sad, so I'm gonna go on Messenger. Generally, if there's something there, like, oh, I don't like this song, so I'm gonna change the radio, and then you turn it to a song and it's like full on talking to you, that is your kids nudging you to it. And it's a really big one to become aware of. Christy, were you aware at that moment, like, oh, or even after the fact, like, oh, she totally nudged me to that. So I could hear her say, I love you, Mom.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I have been kind of like thinking like, why haven't I gotten this on recording anywhere of her like saying, "I love you, Mommy," or anything, and then
And
it
then
just
she
happened
led
today.
you, she led you right to it.
Yep.
That's awesome. Another thing to remember, guys, and Christy, like you getting the flu, when we're talking vibration, right? So when you're ill, when your physical body is ill, your vibration is very much naturally lower. That's just the physical world truth of it. So when you're physically ill, what you'll find, like Christy just said, it kind of will roll you into maybe some default sadness, default grief. Okay. Because your vibe is already low. And when your vibe is low, your ego, woo, here's my chance, right? We'll let her see how much she just doesn't believe now. And so your ego will sometimes start pain feeding you, right? And it may not even be about the grief. Like with Christy was like, I was sad because I got sick over Thanksgiving. I couldn't even eat my turkey and all this stuff, right? So notice and have the awareness that when your vibe is low because you're physically ill or you're worn out or you're tired or any of it, your stinking thinking will get really big. Okay. Have the awareness of that. Know that it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It will come and it will go. Now, it may go with you having to intentionally shift it after it's done its job for whatever reason it's there. When mine is that way, I'll be quite honest with you. When I get down to my shadow, I become a real bitch for like 2 days. I'm not nice to anybody. So please don't ever think I'm this ethereal being that lives in my light all the time because I'm absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I'll be really kind of hateful and short and snarky and I can get kind of catty, totally bitchy. And so I just sit in it and I usually have to end up giving like so many apologies after those 2 days because I've just been a total heathen. But generally at the end of those couple days when it has overtaken me and then it starts to recede a little bit, then I'm like, okay, what the hell was that for? Like, what purpose did that serve? And I'll really sit down and I'll get into my self-awareness. So I'm like, okay, what purpose did that serve for me? What did it come to teach me? Well, usually it came to teach me that I needed to start working on patience again, tolerance, non-judgment, to be aware of my thoughts and my behaviors and my actions, that I need to work on taming my ego in that context, whatever it is. And then I will start to intentionally shift it. And then, of course, I have to make amends for when, ego Nikki, who is, she can be a handful. When ego Nikki's in the driver's seat, then I make amends and I start working on whatever it is that it pointed me out that I have to work on, right? It may have been boundaries. Maybe I wasn't, setting the boundaries I needed to set, and I was starting to feel resentment because I wasn't setting the boundaries, whatever it is, right? So it's a good thing to have self-awareness when you're down in it, and to also realize And Kathy Elliott and I just talked about this, to also realize that it's not going to stay that way. Like, it will pass. It does serve a purpose to be down in the gritchity. I call it my gritchity, right? So, Christy, do you feel like you've had that during your flu? Like, okay, this is just a temporary feeling. This too shall pass. I'll be able to shift. Like, did you feel that at all?
Once I started feeling better, yeah, I was just stuck in the house and just looking at all her pictures and everything. So that kind of made me get down on myself. But like as things got better, I just took a drive, cleared my head, and kind of just came to it. And then I felt better.
Good. So you grounded yourself basically,
Yeah.
and you took yourself out of the pain feeding. That's something I want to talk about tonight, guys, is when you're down in it, it's going to be up to you not to pain feed yourself. Okay. So those of you that had big purges for this holiday, I want to ask you, because self-awareness of this is a big thing. Did you pain feed yourself? It's okay if you did. It's a very natural human thing to do when we're in the loop. You know what I mean? When we're in the loop, that's when we ruminate. That's when we wish. That's when we coulda, shoulda, woulda. That's when we, do all the
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I mean, I go, like, it wasn't Thanksgiving, but yesterday I started with, why wasn't it me instead of him, that got sick?
Tell me the answer to that. Sorry, guys, my dogs are in the house.
Yeah.
What's the answer to that, Antoinetta?
I know what the
According to your
answer
truth.
is. I
Can you
know what
tell
the
us?
answer is. Yeah.
What is the
And
answer?
we didn't plan it that way.
And you're still embodied because you have more to learn and give on this side.
Which I still can't figure out for the life of me what that could possibly be.
Well, but you know what? Well, I can tell you one thing right off the get-go. It's to stand in your truth more. That's usually one of the biggest ones, right? Because if you're still flip-flopping back and forth a lot between ego and truth and ego and truth and ego and truth, one of the reasons you're still here is to still tame that ego. I mean, guys, it's one of my biggest lessons. Mine's a tricky little bugger.
Yeah, I
to do with grief
guess I get in this thing like, well, I was a good person. Why was it my son that got cancer? You know what I mean? Like,
okay, so
what lesson did I have to learn? I was a really good mom. I took care of my kids. I did everything I was supposed to do. I don't know. I go down this.
Yeah, let's talk about this, because I'm sure a lot of you do this. So when you believe in a soul contract, and you do, Antoinetta, like I know that you do.
I do, but I believe it, but I have a hard time accepting it. It's like, I don't know, I can't explain it. Part of me says, like, why does it have to be this way with the soul contract? But okay, go ahead and finish.
Well, the reason it has to be this way is because we literally come into the flesh on the earth plane to learn through contrast. That's how spirit grows. That's how it evolves. That's how it transcends, is through growth and expansion. As humans, when you're having fun and living your best life, how much are you growing? No, you're not growing. You're just having a damn good time. Having a good time. It's when we're in contrast that we really sit down and we introspect and we're like, ooh, like, I need to change the way I'm doing that. That's, maybe I wasn't having high integrity there, or that all comes through contrast. Contrast is anything we perceive as negative or struggle, right? You don't have to like it yet, Antoinetta. But once you learn to surrender to it, eventually you'll stop pain feeding yourself in that way. And it's going to be up to you guys. Like Antoinetta, and you know this, I know you know this because we've talked about it in private sessions, but like, it's going to be up to you to say, okay, I've sat in this grossness. I feel gross and I've sat in it long enough. So I need to intentionally shift back to my truth, right? So you already know that. And just for the rest of you, you guys have to know that the only absolute thing you're ever in control of is your thoughts and your actions. And you are in charge of your thoughts, right? So at any given time, when you're thinking, what did I do to deserve this? I was a good mother, and I'm not putting you on the spot, Antoinette. I can say this because we've all been there, right? At any given time, you can literally step in front of that and say, you know what? That is not what my truth is. This is my truth. I'm going to drive it home. At that point, for me, I would purge out what I needed to purge, and then I would put on Abe Hicks' death lecture, or I would pull out my truth on a notepad and I'd write it out again. And whatever I could do to jump back to the other neural pathway. Physiologically, what's happening with that, guys, like spiritually, you're popping from spirit to ego to spirit to ego. Physiologically, what's happening is you're popping from one neural pathway to the other. Okay. And the other one, the ego one, is one that is dug really, 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 really deep. So every time you pop back over to that ego neural pathway, the one that you have social programming with, and you have victim identity with, and you have everything that bad that happens is because I'm being punished. And why am I being punished? Because I'm a good person. That one has been being dug since you were a child. So it is a trench. This new one with your truth and where your spirit leads, it's a newer neural pathway. It's not dug as deep. Okay. So every time you pop over to this one and you let yourself ruminate and think these thoughts for days and weeks and months on end, you're digging that ditch even deeper. You're digging that ditch even deeper, and it's going to be a lot harder to get popped back over to start digging this one again. Does that make sense? Am I articulating that? Okay. So for me, it was really important because I wanted to work with the neuroplasticity of my brain, because I have a background in behavior, right? So I was like, every time I would like go through my purge, let myself feel it, I'd write it out, burn letter it out, and then I would say, that's enough. I'm not digging that ditch any deeper. And I would start feeding my truth again instead of feeding my pain. Okay. That's how the paradigm shift happens. Is eventually the goal is to get this new neural pathway just as deep or deeper than this one. Okay. It takes conscious, consistent work to do that. Kim, this is some of the stuff we're going to start, you and I are going to start working on. Okay. So I'm glad this is like kind of an intro course for you here. So you're not just working. It's not just about your awareness of your thoughts to switch from your spirit to your ego. You're literally working with your actual human brain and the neuroplasticity, the ability to dig new neural pathways. Okay. Like, it's kind of freaky amazing, really. I mean, it's really hard, but like, thank God that that mechanism is part of the human flesh, right? Because if not, we'd all be screwed. So, but that's what that is. And Antoinetta has an understanding of this. So, you know, like the longer you sit in your pain feeding and your victim identity and the punishment phase, the more you're going to start thinking that again, the easier it's going to start thinking that again, because you're not working on this neural pathway. Okay. Now, a lot of you are just like, I got to let it run its course, you know, and then you'll shift. That's okay too. For me, I would let it run its course. And then I just got to where I was tired of feeling gross. To me, it felt gross. It felt heavy. I felt like I was walking through wet concrete. I was pissed off at the world. You know, sad, crying, and I ugly cry when I really get down in it to cry. And so it really would boil down to me finally saying, okay, Nikki, I've had enough of your shit. Like, you know your truth. It's time to shift, get it together. And so I would shift, and I would do that by using my tools. I would tap, I would ground, I would gratitude and affirmation. I would watch an Abe Hicks death lecture. I would read something about soul contracts. I would, instead of pain feeding myself, I would truth feed myself. Okay. And that's what this takes to be able to shift. Debbie, going from point A to where you were the first year in this program. And Debbie was the one that was like, this is never going to get better. Nikki, like, fuck you, this is never going to get better. I mean, I saw the dirty looks, girl, but now she's in contact with her guide. She doesn't seek Isaac out. She knows how to connect and she's aware of him. She's stepping back into integration, figuring out what she wants for her new normal to be able to thrive in. How much work did you have to do to go from pain shifting to truth feeding, or pain feeding to truth feeding consistently over the period of the last few years?
It was a lot of crappy work. Let me tell you, it was a daily ritual. And like you were talking about before, like it's easy to get off that path. Like I'm doing better, I'm doing okay, but
I can go back to normal.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a constant, every day, like I have to surrender. That doesn't mean I like it. It doesn't mean like I'm okay with this, but this is my truth. What am I going to do with it? And I'm glad you're bringing this up because I was going to ask you today. So my Thanksgiving was actually not bad. I had to cook. So I had to call in my mom, and I'm like, Lord, I can't cook, but I'm cooking for 20 people. Like, Mom, you have to totally be with me and like, just tell me like what to be doing. And that's and it turned out all right. I burned some rolls. Okay, I could deal with that. But overall, I had to really like, you have to be with me. You have to like put into my thoughts what I have to do. And they did. And it's funny because like, I'm not a good person sometimes with like staying present, and my mind's always thinking. And sometimes that's my unhealthy coping, is I just constantly have to go. So like every time I go in the bathroom, Isaac like blinks the light, like, and I'm like, oh, okay, hi Isaac. And then it stops. And he's really good about that.
He'll bring you back to being present. That's
like,
very,
Mom,
very good.
Mom, stop it. Stay with us.
Get it together.
But I was going to ask you, so this was really interesting today. So Thanksgiving went well. Everything went well. My nephew had a little boy a couple months ago. He had a baptism today. And I went to church to the baptism today. First time been to church.
I know.
It was weird. That cellular memory like was crushing. Like I walked into the church and I felt, remember that first year I kept saying, I felt like I have this huge brick on my chest and I can't breathe. And I kept going, like I had to like catch my breath, but there was nothing, and I kept thinking like, I know this is what it is. It's me bringing back to all those, when Isaac was in body, like all those spiritual, like I was heavy praying over him and just doing those rituals. Right. And I had all these churches involved and I knew that's what it was, but there really was no like memories like haunting me or anything like that. But
just your body
memory, and I'm still like trying to catch my breath. Like I still feel like I have this heavy brick on my shoulder and I'm trying to catch my breath, and it just that, but there's no memory like I need to like work through.
It's not conscious. Well, right. And here's the deal though, Debbie, with tapping, it doesn't have to be a conscious thing either, because when you're doing tapping, even though you're verbalizing, and with some tapping, you're going to use the memory to work through it. That doesn't have to be the only way you can tap. So, because tapping is going to be about setting the intention for the energy to be released. So you're going to, and I cannot find a tapping specific to cellular memory. So that's why I always say, go back to tapping for trauma, because trauma is stored in the body. So it may already be that you've worked through the spiritual level of that, but the physical level is still bubbling up. So I would do some tapping. I would do other kinds of somatic release, any kind of somatic release you can do. The other point of this, and you're not going to like this one, the other point of this is how I've worked to really change cellular memory in myself a lot, is I work through the actual trigger with it. And while I'm doing it, I say, I'm safe. This is no longer, I'm releasing traumatic energy. I do it that way, but that's going to require you to go back to the church a lot. And I know that that's not really something you want to do. So maybe you can do it by bringing up church scenes on this. When we do the trigger class, and I haven't ran it in 2 years, and I need to run another one. So because part of the process when Kathy and I run the trigger class is we use desensitization to the trigger while we're armed with our spiritual truth, while we're tapping, while we're listening to 528 mega, like we bring a slew of this stuff in, right? While we're working through the trigger. And
Right.
so it would be a good idea for you to arm yourself with this stuff, tapping with trauma, get familiar with the tapping points of the trauma,
Yeah, I know
right?
that.
Of the trauma
Mhm.
release. Get your 528 megahertz on there because that's your healing the DNA one, right? So we're working on cellular memory with the binaural beats at that point, with solfeggio
Mhm.
and have your truth written out regarding that specific thing. Praying over Isaac, I prayed to have him saved and well. My prayer was answered, just not in the way I expected. Whatever that truth looks like for you, and then get in front of your computer and go into like a Sunday sermon on YouTube and do it that way because you're in the safety of your home, right? Calling
Mhm.
your guides, calling all your higher ups, calling Jesus, God, archangels, call in this and call them all in, get all of upper management in there, and breath work, tapping, 528 megahertz, like put it together. Say, all right, I'm going to start by sitting down here, setting my intention. I'm going to go ahead and start tapping for it right now.
Yeah.
Right now. Okay.
Mhm.
Are you having anxiety even thinking about doing this process?
No, it's like I'm not even thinking, but it's like my body just keeps going.
Yeah. Okay. So that's your guidance system for,
Right.
and Isaac saying, hey, we're going to work on this now.
Right.
Okay.
And I think some of it too is like, just the fact that like, but I know like when I was there, I'm like, I kept telling my body, like, body, this is a safe place to be. I am safe. Everything's fine. And I kept like, and I know like the only way, to heal it is through it, that you have to. So I
Right.
just sat there and I kept saying, body, this is a safe place to be. And I
Mhm.
choose this and I choose to be here. And I just kept sitting with it. And I know like when I came back, I just kind of had to decompress and I'm like, you know what? I know this isn't going to stay. I know this is just a temporary thing. It's not going to stay with me. So like, it helps to have that base that you've taught me, like, like this grief wave, these traumas, these triggers, nothing lasts as long as you sit with it and let it pass. So I think that was just like, and it was also like a cue, like, oh my God, how much I forgot how heavy that was until you
Right.
go back and you're like, oh my God, that was heavy. Like being in that first state, that was really heavy.
Well, and for you, like, there are going to be things you have to go into a church for. You may start attending weddings at some point,
Right.
things of this nature. So when you have triggers that come up, oh, thank you, Kathy. She's going to post the emotional freedom technique, the EFT, the
EFT.
tapping stuff. So yeah. So when you have triggers,
Mhm.
and you can identify them, it's going to be a personal choice. It's going to be a personal choice if you're like, I don't ever have to go back there, I'm never doing that again, I don't ever want to feel that heaviness. Or you
Mhm.
can say, I'm taking my power back and I am going to work direct, just like we've done everything else. I'm heading right long into it, right? And you're going to have feelings come up, you're going to have things come up, but the key to that is purging all of that out while you're doing things actively to release that energy and shift it, right?
Yeah.
So,
And
reiterating your truth while you're in the midst of a trigger to do that, like you're watching a sermon on TV and your ego and your body's going, well, fuck that shit. Like, oh, we have animosity and resentment towards that. That means that your truth, even though in spirit, like you believe it, you're there 100%. It means you still have some stuff earth side that's just not quite convinced. Your body's not convinced of it. Your ego's still going. So it just means there's more work to do. Okay.
yeah, it's interesting how like your beliefs really like sometimes even affect it too. Cause like I'm listening to their service and in my mind, I'm like, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Cause he's talking and I don't want to be like, if anyone's got a strong belief in here, please, I'm not disrespecting you in any means, but the whole service was about like how we're sinners and God deserves to punish us and how we should all be punished. In my mind, I'm like, that's
Was it
complete.
Catholic?
No, it wasn't. But
No.
um,
They love
I'm
the
like,
punishment aspect.
so that was
man.
so against. But I was Catholic and I believe that.
I know. That's why I
Yeah.
asked.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
I always had a problem with that. Like
Yeah.
it was just like, I hear you. I feel the same way. It's not it.
so I'm
Yeah.
like,
You have-
well,
so
I was thinking,
you
I was
have-
like, my God is a loving God. He is not here to punish me. This is punishment enough. What we're going through, that's complete and utter bullshit. But so that was part of it too, that it was stirring up. So I had these feelings, and then my truth was like going against everything this man was saying. I'm like, no, no,
So
no.
this
we're-
is a bless their heart time too.
I know,
'cause it's
and I
like,
think it.
bless their heart because
Some people need
they're
this message, and that's
some
fine. But it was just like
pers-
everything.
yeah.
I'm like, "Ugh." So
yeah.
yeah. So that's where I'm like, I need to
We got
come
some work
back here.
to do there, Debs. We got some work to do there. But you know,
but it was interesting. There was no like blast before. I think a year ago or 2 years ago, my mind would have went to all these thoughts of Isaac and at the end, and my mind didn't do that. And I think some of the teachings that's really helped me with you is to, is like feel into my body. What is my, not as my what my brain's telling me, but what's my body telling me? What is my body telling me I need to work on? And it's getting out some of that hurt with the religious part, but being
Yeah.
okay with my truth now. And I think that's
well, and you were steeped, I mean, you were really, really steeped within the indoctrination of Catholicism, and
Mhm.
I don't have a problem with that because I think everybody needs the wording and the belief system that they need at that time. A lot of people expand past that. Some people don't. That's okay. That's like you said, Debbie, that's where they're at, how they need to interpret it. For
Yeah.
me, I can listen to anybody speak. Like I can listen to any pastor speak, I can listen to any spiritual person speak, and I don't get angry. I'm just like, my interpretation of those words is different than what yours is, right? And so I
Mhm.
can bless their hearts. But one of the things is that this is definitely showing you where you have more work, and you
Yeah.
are so steeped in Catholicism that you've dug your new neural pathway, but there's some resentment towards that because you feel betrayed by what you were taught your whole entire. It's kind of like I lived a damn lie, right? So there's anger towards that. So we need to get to the pinpoint of that. And you know how this works. You get into the cracks and the crevices and you
Yeah.
pull it out and say, oh, okay, that's what's building this up. Is like, I feel betrayed by what I was taught, and I felt like I was taught lies, and I'm angry about it. And then you can, even though you don't believe that anymore, like with your whole spirit, it's still, if there's a little piece, get that burn letter out and be like, okay, dear religion, dear how I was raised, blah, 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 and it did this to me, blah, 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 and let's get it up and out of there, because that's a good way to release. Like when you guys do burn letters, it doesn't have to be, dear, I was going to say Donald Trump, but I don't want to offend anybody. It doesn't have to say, dear anybody. It can be like, dear death, dear religion, dear childhood trauma, dear broken leg, whatever it is, Christy, dear flu, you can,
I think,
right
and
off it.
I
Yeah.
think this has been building up too, and I think maybe this is a good thing because it come to a head because obviously I'm involved in a lot of the childhood cancer things, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Like people always saying, obviously you want to pray for a child fighting cancer, obviously, and then like the child heals, which is wonderful. That's what you want, but it's like, oh, God answered my prayer. The whole reason He healed us because that, and I'm thinking, but there's more to it. There's a soul contract because all of us prayed for our kids,
And
and they still went
gonna
on.
tell you, when I found out that you had gotten super involved with childhood cancer, I thought, oh,
I know, and
yeah,
I
like
do,
this
and
is gonna open up some things.
it does, and I always send beautiful, loving, healing energy.
Of course,
But I have to bite when I see that, like all of us prayed for our babies,
do.
So
And
there's
so
more
you're
to
gonna
that.
have to figure out your shifts. And I'm
Yeah,
telling you, you're gonna come across so many parents that are saying these things to you, and it's like,
and I'm telling every time, and it's good. They
yeah.
need that, and
But
yeah,
practice, Debbie, like, that your prayers were answered.
just not
Isaac
how I
is
want it.
no longer, just not how you wanted. And so surrender into that and practice saying to them, because you don't want it to feel like a jab every time they say it, because you're doing work of service in that area. So practice saying, I'm glad your prayers were answered. Mine were answered too, in a different way. Period. End of discussion. So you can walk away feeling like you stood in your truth, and it's okay if it wasn't their truth, but you don't feel like you just had to like chomp your tongue off, right? You found verbiage that works in supporting your own truth. And maybe that will somehow be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be saying that to somebody whose child did leave body from cancer, right? Because you can't just be like, oh, you can't spark the debate at that point. And this is a huge debate, guys. This is a huge debate, and it's not only with cancer, it's with sudden death too. It's with suicide as well, because it's like, well, we prayed for our kids' safety. We pray, you know, so this is a big thing in the grief community, right? So if you can each take away from Debbie's experience with this, that you can still speak your truth when you get your truth. Like, it's going to be a lot harder to speak that and say my prayers were answered just in a different way if you honestly don't believe that yet. You know, I have prayed for my kids. My prayer looks a little bit different, I will tell you, but now what my prayer is let the highest good be done. I don't pray for specific, it's let the highest good be done. When I see an ambulance, I don't pray, oh my gosh, I hope they're okay, I hope they live. It's let the highest good be done. Because my truth is 100% that physical death is not a bad thing. It's not a big deal. I mean, I know that's a bold, bold statement, okay? And I say that from a spiritual standpoint, not to invalidate the earth experience that is the freaking nightmare of it, okay? Like, so never, don't confuse those two when I say, like, it's no big deal. Like, if your friend dies, when you know, when Kathy messaged me about Michael, I didn't say to her in the midst of her turmoil, oh, it's not that big of a deal, Kathy, you know that. Like, I didn't say that to her because I understand the earth side of that. But when you have that truth, you're going to get more empowered and bold in finding ways to speak that, so that you don't feel like you were invalidated. Because that's a little bit of what's going on here, is like, oh, well, your kid was healed and I'm totally invalidated by God again, you know, because that's kind of the way we're taking it. So this is actually really good, Debbie, because you've been in a really good place, right? And we know what happens when you're in that really good place, live it up, because there will be a level up at some point. There will be a level up at some point. If you're committed to growing and spiritual evolution, you will get hit with level ups. But what's going to happen is Debbie could have crawled in bed and went back to her old way of thinking, or she can say, well, this is a new layer that I've yet to peel back all the way. And she can step into it, and she will, because I've worked with Debbie. She's really committed to her healing, and that's what she'll do. So this is what I want you to look at, Debbie. I want you to really get a game plan in order for tackling this part, because you have so many tools now. So when you decide you're ready to work through this trigger, right? So I want you to get your tools in order. Start it with grounding. You're going to just really bombard it, and you may have to do it more than once. You know this. I would start with a burn letter first to organized religion and the way that you were programmed. Give it a good cussing. Tell it what it did to you. Tell it gave you stored trauma. Do it, because that's the part where you have to give that ego a voice, because it's angry. You're angry. There's anger there, right? And the anger's battling with your spirit, and your spirit's saying, just breathe, Debbie, it's okay, you know your truth. And your ego's like, oh, I'm gonna burn this church down, right? So give your ego the voice it needs. It's systematic. On the earth side, everything's systematic. Religion is not, unfortunately, religion is not not part of that. So it's systematic. It's systematic programming. It's indoctrination. It's all the things, and it serves a purpose for people that find purpose in it. So do the burn letter to it, and then get ready to go through the desensitization process, because that's another way we can work with cellular memory. When you're ready, Rita, you may not be ready for that. This is a new layer for Debbie. So you and we have to work your triggers a different way with your cellular memory. We have to go pretty basic at this point. Whereas you, Debbie, you're going to have to get out all the big guns that you have in your armor, and you're going to have to really walk into it that way. So do the burn letter, then the day of, and you may have to do this process several times. I want you to get grounded. I know it's cold there, get those feet out in the cold grass for a minute even. Then I want you to have your be listening to some 528, set the intention behind what you want those tones to do for you. I'm using this to repair my cellular memory, my DNA, get rid of this, get specific with it. Then I want your truth written out regarding regarding what happened to your prayers. Were they answered? Were they answered in a different way? Oh, yes, they were, because Isaac's good. And detailed. Okay, detailed. I want you to read it once. I want you to go ahead and go through a trauma tapping. Then I want you to bring a sermon up. I want you to find the most fire and brimstone sermon that you can find, with the hell and the sinners and the punishment and all the things. And I want you to, maybe you can only sit through 2 minutes of it and your body reacts. You're going to do breath work at that point. You're going to tap more. You're going to look down up that truth, reiterate it, reiterate it, reiterate it. More soulful geotones, then get out and get grounded again. Maybe you can only do 2 minutes the first time. That's okay. Then you're going to set it where next week you're going to do 3 minutes, or maybe you want to do it daily. That's the timeline is up to you, but walk yourself through a process so that you can get rid of the memory, the cellular memory. Something else we do in that trigger class, when we have these feelings that come up, we find a way to also physically release it. Kathy went in her first trigger class before she was co-leading with me. She went through axes for what she was working on with ego stuff, like anger and resentment and that kind of stuff. So, you know, go out, find a tree, say, okay, energetically, this tree represent organized religion and my indoctrination, and these eggs represent the stored trauma in my body, and get pissed and pelt those eggs at the tree and give it a physical release to get all that shit up and out too. You got to really tackle it with all sides. Okay.
Yeah, I've used plates before, like old plates and stuff, just beating the shit out of it and making sure I clean it up.
Yeah, eggs are like way less
no, that's
messy is what
exactly. You don't have shard glass or anything.
No
like that.
sharded glass.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, it just kind of threw me for a loop. Like you said, you're like, you're doing good, and wham, sorry,
Wham.
pops. You know that here comes a trigger, and you weren't prepared for that. You know, like, okay, I've done so much work, and like you said, you're riding high, and
you're
just out of nowhere,
high.
and then the
And
universe
you know
says,
what
there's still more.
what I love though is that you didn't go back into default.
Nope.
And you know, a lot of people, when the level up comes, they start telling themselves, their ego acts up and start saying, oh, you didn't do as much work that you thought you did you? You're back to square one. You went backwards. Me. I love that you're in a place that you can say, this is a level up. This is a further expansion. It's more stuff that I want and need to heal. And it did not throw you into default. That's a testament to your measured progress. So it comes with good purpose. I mean, it's all good purpose, right? It's now showing you how flipping far you have come.
Right.
And that you can and will and are rising to the challenge. You're like, bring it. I know how to do this. Bring it.
Right. Like I said, that foundation you gave us for me at the beginning, you know, so for anyone that's new, it's keep sticking with Nikki, because you need that foundation. Once you have it, you can tackle these other things. So
put your fighting gloves on and get your warrior sword out. And are you scared to do this?
No.
Well, and that's what you said there anymore.
Go ahead.
What you said there, Debbie, is I think the really important gem is it's a foundation. You have to have your foundation. And if you don't, I mean, that's literally, honestly, the connecting with your kids isn't even as important as the foundation of gelling what your absolute truth is. I'm not going to lie, I probably wouldn't be sitting here after my husband died on our couch had I not been totally strong in my truth from Sophie passing 5 years earlier. I would probably be in a psychiatric hospital right now, because I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm totally alone. My whole entire family's gone. And I wallowed for a week, and I cried even though I didn't want to. And I did all the things, and I'm still working through a lot of ego battles with this extra layer, even as far out as I am and as strong as I am in my truth. But if you're not solid in your truth, if that truth is like sand on the beach and it's moving around, that's always going to give your ego a foothold, and it's going to make it harder. You're always going to be in these really huge battles with your ego if you don't have the solid foundation.
And that solid foundation, guys, takes rewiring your brain using the neuroplasticity. So it takes you, we don't want to go around the painful stuff, okay? We don't want to bypass. You're going to see a lot of people in this grief and healing community, not healing warrior parents, because we talk about it a lot, but that will spiritually bypass. So they're like, oh, I'm not going to feel the bad stuff. I'm just going to live in my truth and my truth and my truth and my truth. Guess what, guys? We're creatures of duality. You're still in flesh. That the icky parts of this serve a purpose to empower you. They come to teach you. They come to guide you. I used to call it the grief beast. I was like, I fucking hate the grief beast. Now I'm like, grief has been one of my best friends. Not in a way that, oh, grief, please be part of my life forever and ever and ever, but in a way like, wow, what an amazing teacher. Like my brain puts things into context like cartoons. So like a lot of times I get the image of me and the Grim Reaper just holding hands, skipping down the street, because one of my best teachers. So I don't hate her anymore. I don't hate the beast anymore. The beast is what I was scared of. She's not a beast anymore to me. She's a friend, and she comes to be one of my best teachers. So, but it's going to take a while, and it's going to take consistent, exhausting. It is so freaking exhausting, you guys, when you're trying to retrain your brain to your truth. Like, you're just like, oh my God, can I just check out of even being aware of my thoughts for a while? And you can't. So when you feel really like, I'm done, I don't want to think about it anymore, like, do like Kathy does. She's like, Christmas movie time, click. And that's what she does right now to check out. For me, I checked out with, I'm kind of crass and vulgar. That's my sense of humor. So I checked out with things like Always Sunny in Philadelphia, or, you know, adult humor stuff. So when you're just having those days where you're like, I don't want to shift, I don't want to think about it, I don't want to think about ego, I don't want to think about spirit, I would literally say to Leaf, like, dude, I got to check out for 2 days. Here's the key though, you have to come back to it. You have to come back to it. This foundation that Debbie's talking about, and any of the people that have been in any classes, any programs, worked with me privately, they can tell you, this will be the key that we will work on for a very long time. And Kim, you had messaged me and you were like, I have a hard time setting the foundation of my beliefs. That's what we're going to be working on to start with, is the foundation. We're going to drive it in over and over and over and over and get the visual. You're literally digging out a new neural pathway, digging out a new neural pathway. And this brings up a huge thing too. Guys, connection is a huge piece of your healing. It's a huge piece of your truth. It is not the end all be all. I have people that we've gotten them really, really connected, and then they try to go back to their before normal, and it still falls apart on them. The grief waves still come. They don't come as often, they don't come as hard, but they still come. Those are the people that you see that are saying grief and joy coexist forever and ever and ever. They don't have to. Okay, they don't have to, especially when you finally get to a place of surrender, which is way down the road, and it comes in a million different ways, shapes and forms and moments and minutes and thoughts and all of it. But we have to get a solid foundation of your truth. That's why when I posted where everybody write out their beliefs, and some of you were like, I believe in afterlife, I want you to, what do you believe about afterlife? What do you believe about your child not being dead? What does that look like for you? Like for me, it looks like infinite possibility. Like that kid, these kids, anything they want, blink of an eye, right? Anything. What does it look like? For me, I studied, I researched, I did a lot of the things. It's all without going into a huge rabbit hole on any one of them. I believe in channelers. I believe we're spirit housed in flesh. I believe we all have these gifts. I don't like the word gifts, these gifts. I don't like that word. But what do you believe? Not just, yeah, I believe in afterlife. what do you believe about afterlife? What do you believe about how your child is living life between lives? Do you believe in reincarnation? Do you not believe in reincarnation? I do. Do you believe in, soul contracts? What do you believe about soul contracts? You can believe them, still be pissed off at them right now. What you're going to come into eventually, even with the soul contract, when you learn to surrender, is that there has been no end. 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 This is a continuum. Earth, life, afterlife, Earth, life, afterlife, Earth, life, afterlife. You might even pop over to a different universe, and then you pop back, and then you go here, and then you get a vacation life. Like it's a working mechanism. There has been no end ever. So you have to have the foundation that Debbie and Kathy are talking about, not just connection, you guys. You have to have a solid foundation of what your in-depth truth is. Like,
right, because connecting is part of healing, and connecting can be a healing experience, but connecting does not equal healing.
No.
They're totally different things.
One piece of it. Debbie, what Debbie's getting ready to work on for her healing has literally very little to do with her connection to Isaac. Isaac brought her to this, yes, because of their experience they signed up for within their soul contract. Like, this is an example. Debbie literally signed up to reconcile for her indoctrination that she chose to have in her earth life. Like, it's written in her contract. If it wasn't, she wouldn't be ready or getting ready or have the awareness to start going through it. This is also something you guys can literally sit down and say, I don't have to like it, but what the hell did I write in my soul contract? You can literally start to see it. I can look through my life long before Leaf ever left body and be like, damn, I sure wrote in some helter-skelterness. I wrote in 17-year abusive marriage. I have no animosity toward it. I mean, he's a dick. And on the earth side, when I'm mad at him, I'm like, damn, he's being a dick. But it's not like I'm not fuming with hate for him every time I think of him, because he doesn't have that power over me, because I know I wrote that in. And had I not had the will to survive that, I damn sure would have never survived Leaf leaving body. It was literal warrior in training way back when. So I don't have animosity for that. So sit with your soul contracts and look at what you've been through and what you learned and how you grew. And those of you that have like terminal illness with your kiddos, like Debbie and I have had to do this. Why would Isaac have signed up for cancer? Because I'm going to put you on the spot here, Debs. I hope you don't mind that. But like, it was like, why would he sign up for this? I had to watch him suffer and be in so much pain. And we said, why would he have signed up for it, Debbie? What did he learn? Well, he learned about resilience. He learned about the physical body. He learned before Debbie ever learned that there was no death. Like, he learned his own lessons through all of that. And by proxy, Debbie learns all of this too. Does that make sense?
And he taught me also that like part of this wasn't even about him. Like, his mission was really about experiencing it and touching the people he needed to, and then leave. It really, that was his experience, and not to conflict our experiences and our journeys. Like, that's been my biggest healing, is that was his journey. And sometimes I've had that guilt, and he keeps telling me, don't confuse our journeys, Mama, don't confuse our journeys, because
right there,
feeling guilty is confusing our journeys, because that's not what it's about. But he came here for part of my healing, and that's been hard to accept. But part of the lesson, he came here and left. I mean, he was 2.5 at diagnosis. I mean, who signs up for that, right? And dies at 6. But part of that was he did that as our soul contract for my healing and touching other people's lives and the impact he's going to create. So it's hard. It's hard to look at that and be like, why the hell would you sign up for that? That was a painful life, I mean, he suffered, but he was stronger than me. So I don't know if that helps.
It does. And here's one of the things, like, that brings up my mom, like, and she, bless her heart, like, my part of his soul contract was like to lead me into doing what I do, right? And now we can have all these ripples and all these other kids and having ripples, and we're spreading this healing and we're spreading this light. And she has said to me before, like, well, what a sacrifice for him. And I'm like, He sacrificed nothing. He's perfectly okay. He's missing out on nothing because he didn't write in the experiences that he's missing out on, right? The emotional pain that he was in throughout his life, which was a lot. His body that we didn't know was starting to shut down, but we didn't know that. Like that, none of that was a sacrifice for him because he came here with specific intention, right? Isaac came with specific intention and he wrote in exactly how he would achieve that intention. So that does, just in that simple moment of truth, how much does that alleviate for you, Debbie? Like that, oh, his suffering came with purpose for growth for so many people, right?
Yeah, that does help, is that and that's the biggest thing, is that it wasn't for nothing. He didn't suffer for nothing. That he touched more people than I will probably ever touch in his 6 years than I will ever touch so far in my 45 years. So that does help, is that it wasn't for nothing, and none of our kids die for nothing. So there's a bigger purpose than I even understand. So, and we won't understand until we probably get there. So
Exactly. Okay. Kathy Elliott, where are you?
Right here.
I just got an emergency phone call that I need to take care of.
Okay.
So I'm sorry guys, it's like a big emergency that I need to take care of. Can you take over?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make this phone call and then I'll pop back on with you guys, but I can't leave this hanging because it could get bad real quick. Okay, I'll be right back. Hopefully I'll be right back. I'll pop in either way. Thank you. I'm sorry,
Okay.
guys.
Okay. And I'm not gonna lie, I hate this. I hate being left in charge. So does anyone else have anything that you'd like to discuss about how your holiday went, what's going on with you, how you're feeling now that you made it over the Thanksgiving bump and we're staring down Christmas? Because sometimes I think it's easier. I know in the past for me, it was easier to ignore Thanksgiving than it was to ignore Christmas. Christmas is the big one, and it's really in your face everywhere, all day, every day, all over social media, all over the TV. Christmas is one of those ones that it's really hard to avoid unless you stay in your house with your curtains closed and, hibernate for about 3 weeks. So are you guys all feeling okay in that regard? Are you worried about the lead up to Christmas?
I'm feeling kind of guilty how I just zoned out of Thanksgiving.
Why? What's making you feel guilty about it?
Well, my sister had back surgery and she was in the hospital for 2 extra days. So I went to her house because they have a 13-year-old Yorkie that has anxiety issues. So I stayed at her house for 2 days, took my dog, and so I didn't go to the Thanksgiving feast for my son's children that were having, and I felt guilty about it and very, very relieved. I mean, I took my pecan pie to my sister's house and we had it for breakfast.
Yum.
Yeah. But I, as I get back on Facebook and I see pictures of my son died in March and he has 4 children and they're all on Facebook. They've got Thanksgiving pictures up and all that stuff. And I felt really sad that I think I've been in hibernation ever since he died. I mean, it's almost like the pandemic. I don't want to go anywhere or do anything or see anyone. I mean, I do what I have to do, but and I think it's because I really haven't truly grieved Staley's death yet, but that's why I'm here.
Well, and I will tell you, I have a tendency to isolate as well. When I'm down in it, I'm unavailable for consultation. Don't bother me. Don't call me. Don't text me. leave me alone. I'm not going anywhere except for work. And as soon as I come home from work, I'm putting on my pajamas and I'm just isolated. But there comes a time when that isolation can really turn against you. And the longer you isolate, the harder it is to get back out there. So I would caution you to only just be aware of that. Don't be afraid to isolate yourself as part of your grieving process, but don't allow the isolation to become a detriment to you overall, because you're not your grief. So don't let the grief fool you into just isolating with it. Grief can kind of be like an abusive spouse or an abusive partner in some ways, because it will abuse you if you allow it to do that.
Well, I think, I felt guilty for feeling so relieved, which that really makes a lot of sense. But I was so relieved that my sister needed me and I needed to go help at her household, and the rest of my family was real understanding about it. I talked to all of them, but I was real glad I didn't have to go and meet all those strangers I didn't know and yada, yada, yada.
Well, but the reality there is you have to come to a place where you give yourself permission to say no and not feel guilty about it, because it was wonderful that you had that built-in excuse, but you didn't really need an excuse. If you didn't want to go, you should have been able to just say, I'm not up to it this year for my own health. I need to be on my own.
Well, I had made arrangements to take train. Staley's, he'd lived with her for 3 years. I don't know what she was, his wife, girlfriend, or whatever. But anyway, she was supposed to go with me to this luncheon. And so I called her the night before and told her that my sister was having to stay in the hospital 2 more days, or at least 1 more day at that point. Anyway, I felt guilty because she didn't get to go and be with them, but I also felt relieved. And she's from Vietnam, and she doesn't understand English as the first language very well or at all. And so she said, "Thank you, Vaughn. I'm sorry I missed you. I will see you recently." And she meant soon.
Oh, well,
but I will
it's good. It's good that things worked out for you. And if it makes you feel better, feeling both guilty and relieved is 100% normal. It's completely normal.
If I may say, honey, I've been hiding in a bedroom since the day we took my daughter off the vents. I literally cannot go to a store. I cannot go anywhere. This pajamas is what you will almost always see me in. Thank you. I have not gone back into life, and I don't know that I want to. I'm going to see my son in Alaska because he's in the Army. And the last 2 times I've seen him was for his sibling funerals. So I'm doing that, and I'm trying to focus on that because I'm going to be getting on a plane, and I'm going to be trying to do Christmas with him and try to be happy and positive. But I'm also dreading it. I mean, it's scary. So I get it. I mean, I'm not ready to come out of my hole, and I don't know that I ever will, but I'm going to fake it for him.
Well, Staley was the 3rd of my family members to die in the last 5 years. My first son died in 2017, and then my husband died in 2020, and Staley died this year. So I know that's as Nikki might say, a shitload of grief. But
yeah. I lost my 2 kids in the last 2 years, both to suicide. So guilt is an old friend right now that is a bad friend and a bad influence on me. That's why I'm in this. I'm trying to get to a place of understanding, but
I feel like Staley's was suicide too. I don't know that Justin's was intentional, but it was also a drug overdose. And my husband was just 75 years old and smoked for 55 years. And anyway, it's not the same to lose a 75-year-old as it is to lose a 38-year-old.
Or a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old. Yeah.
Oh, bless your heart. What's your name?
Robin.
Robin. Okay, I'm Darlene. I
And
don't
I'm
know
in
if it's-
Texas too. I believe you're in Texas.
I'm in Denton, Texas.
Where?
Denton.
Denton? Denton.
Mhm.
Okay. Know where it's at.
I'm back.
Okay, well, thank you. You okay, Nikki?
Yep, and everything's good. I'll get it taken care of. I have a friend, family member in crisis. So as soon as we're done, I gotta make some arrangements, but it'll be okay. All right, so, Sharon, did you get your question answered by chance? That you typed? Okay, so thank you, Kathy. I'm sorry. I heard you say, I hate it when she puts me in charge.
I don't like to be in charge.
Well, she did great.
She always does. She always does. She's her Christmas Grinch comes out when I put her on the spot like that. I may get my ass chewed later by her. But okay, Sharon. So what do you mean when you say you have to retrain your brain to your truth? So what I mean is most of us grew up not really thinking much about physical death, quite honestly. Social programming looks like I'm so sorry, rest in peace, that kind of stuff. They really were programmed to look at death as an ending, that it's this horribly traumatic thing. I say this sometimes, like, I believe that we're moving into a different phase of how death is looked at in the United States, if not the world as a whole. Even though like Buddhists look at it different and it's much more spiritual, there's still this sadness that comes along with it, which I totally get, because we're creatures of duality and we have to readjust to the non-physical part, the physical absence part. But like I have said, had I known my truth, like really had been indoctrinated since birth, that death is not a big deal, that it's just leaving a body, all these things, that when the detectives had come to the door and rang the door to tell me about Leaf, if they had said, Mrs. Elliott, we're here to let you know Leaf has left his body. He will be in contact with you shortly. We just need to let you know that he's left his body. My grief journey would have looked totally different. Would I have still grieved the physical? Absolutely. But if I had been indoctrinated from a very, very early, there has been no end, and that we're just in the intermittent cycle of the infinite loop, it would have looked different for me, right? So, and that's what my hope is, like what this will look like. I mean, God knows how many years, right? But I wasn't. That's not what I thought about death. I really hadn't given death a whole lot of thought. I was taught that when people die, you do the funeral, you mourn, you grieve, and you have this profound sadness that's within you forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, right? In fact, I was reaching out to like teachers that I had in high school that I knew had children pass, and I was saying, how do you do this? And they kept telling me, it's just always there under the surface, Nikki. And I was like, I just got a literal life sentence of horrible raw pain at any given moment that it feels to poke its head out. Like that's what I've just been given. And so I started seeking. And Sharon, you have a lot of spiritual truth. You know about Abe, you know about, the Sarah books, all the things. So here's the deal. You can read all these things and read all these things and read all these things and get everybody's different perspective on it. But if you never really come into living in your own perspective of it, then you're not living in your truth, and you are going to always have profound sadness, and you are always going to wish it was different, and you are always going to do woulda, coulda, shoulda, and you're going to always still do grief and death the way that humans have been programmed to do grief and death, through their ego, their earth eyes. So when you retrain your brain to your truth, for me, like it was It was an almost, it was sometimes a disgusting, exhausting process for me, because literally I would walk through my house on days that I was heavily grieving, and my ego was heavily saying, Leaf is dead, your son is dead, all the things. I would literally, Tom would be gone, Omri be at school, Tom is at work. And as I walked, just walking through my house, because I knew how neuroplasticity worked, and I knew that I had to dig a new neural pathway to the things that I was finding, like the Abe Hicks death lectures, that very much resonated with me. I felt an immediate peace before I ever had any questioning. I felt immediate peace. So I was like, that feels like nothing I had ever felt, being honest and truthful before. And I recognized that in that moment. So I would literally walk around my house when I was or wasn't grieving, just saying, there is no death. There is no death. Leaf's not dead. He's different. There is no death. There is no death there. And I would chant it, and I would say it, and I would write it, because every single time you're putting that out there and you're putting that in here, you're digging the neural pathway. That's how neuroplasticity works. That's why it takes, how long did they say? It takes a minimum of 21 days to form a habit, right? That's working with neuroplasticity. Okay, so like for Debbie, I don't know where
Does
Debbie
that mean I
Wallace.
can start smoking for a few weeks and then stop and then start again, and then I can say I'm not a smoker?
I do. Quite
'Cause
honestly,
I've thought
Robin.
about it.
Quite honestly, Robin, I do. I quit smoking completely for 2 years. I socially smoke now when I go out and have a drink. Usually when Kate's here, I will be honest, because we like to go out and have drinks and smokes and do the dancing and the such things that we're way too old to do. But I do. I don't consider myself a smoker. I quit completely for 2.5 years, and I social smoke now. So, okay, Lee, thanks for showing up, sister. I hope you don't forget about your Zoom takeaways. But yeah, I do.
Written them down. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, Lee. You do awesome ones too. I appreciate it. But Robin, so yeah, I do. I mean, you can ask Debbie Wallace, or you can ask Kathy. Like, I don't consider myself a smoker. I don't go out and buy cigarettes. I keep Nicorette here with me all the time. And if I have company and we're going out and having drinks, I'm gonna have some cigarettes, because that's how I like. How does this age me? Because that's how I like to party. That's so lame. But yeah, so actually, I'm not, neuroplasticity wise, I am not a smoker anymore. I didn't smoke for 2.5 years. Am I addicted to nicotine? You're absolutely right that I am, which is why I have this gum in my mouth constantly. But the actual smoking of cigarettes, no, I'm not a smoker. Do I like to smoke? I do. Do I do it? Sometimes I do. But I don't consider myself an alcoholic either, because I like to drink, and I drink sometimes, and sometimes I don't. You know, more often than not, I'm not drinking, obviously, but I do like to have drinks, but I don't consider myself addicted to alcohol. So yeah, I'm a social smoker now. And it's going to take a minimum of 21 days to start digging. So Sharon, with neuroplasticity, it's going to start getting dug after 21 days. Okay. The habit doesn't stick after 21 days. It makes it easier to stick if you keep with it after 21 days. That's why, like with you guys, with your healing rituals. Okay, Antoinetta, thanks for coming. With your healing rituals, I like for you guys to really like do the gratitudes and affirmations on the group for 21 days at a minimum. In the big group, 21 days, say them out loud, 21 days. Ground yourself, do a grounding visualization for 21 days minimum, right? Because then you've started to dig the neural pathways. Start saying to yourself every day, several times a day for 21 days, you know, he's different, not dead. She's different, not dead. I am healing. I'm connecting. Your affirmations are huge for that. That's how you start to retrain the brain. And then you dig deeper. Okay, I do believe in afterlife now. I've read enough. I've read things, you know, for me, I was doing things like seeking 17 hours a day obsessively, because I'm a big emotional baby and I can't handle raw pain. So that was a very big driving force for me. But I was doing it obsessively for many, many days, and like actually for a minimum of a year is what it was. And it was closer to more like 2 years. And within that, my brain started changing. The way I spoke started changing. Some of that I had to become aware of, and I had to intentionally change it. And the more of these things you guys do, the more you start understanding what your truth is. Here's the next catch, though. You can understand your truth without living in your truth. Okay? You can change your brain, but without using it to live in such a way that supports your truth, it's moot. Right? It's just information at that point. It's not wisdom that you're living in. Like Kathy said, she has the wisdom and she's lived in that truth with Sophie, but presented with Michael leaving body, she's really having to dig back in and really integrate what this level of that truth looks like in her life. She had it set for the level that Sophie brought. Then Michael left body and it's presented a whole nother level, a whole different context that she now has to learn to live in her truth within. And it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, it's difficult, Kath, isn't it? And it's exhausting. And I'll call and say, how are you? And she's like, I don't want to fucking talk to you. I'm on a timeout day. And I'm like, okie dokie. I'll call you tomorrow. We literally just had that conversation before we got on. I'm like, I'll call you. We'll touch back base on this in a few days. But so you have to learn to integrate and live in your truth. And that means, and it can look kind of cold sometimes, guys, because that means when I have somebody within my circle that, you know, well, I'll be quite honest with Kathy. When Kathy called me shortly after Michael left body, and she's very upset, and I love Kathy. I was hurting for what Kathy went through, but I never said to her, I'm so sorry this has happened, because living in my truth, I know that her and Michael signed up for this. I know that her, Michael, and Sophie signed up for this. And I'm sorry for the pain she's in, but I'm not sorry that it happened, because I know it's part of what her journey is. And I can look like a stone cold bitch sometimes to the wrong people, because I don't overly go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Because like for me, death is different now, because I live in that truth 100%. So I use different verbiage, you know, and I say to Kathy, how can I support you? What happened? You know, I wanted to get on a plane and go there. She would not allow me to do that. But I handle, even when my friends have a catastrophic loss, I handle that differently than what I was formerly programmed to handle it. Does that make sense? Because I live in my truth. I live that steeped in my truth. That is what's considered a full paradigm shift. My reality concerning death is completely different than what my reality concerning death of people that were close to me or not was before I learned to integrate and live in my truth. It's called a full paradigm shift. And I will tell you, it's a lot of self-work. It's a lot of healing, not just your spiritual self. It's a lot of taming ego. Like even when I get down into things that are stressful, that have nothing to do with grief, I work my process that I learned through working with grief. So I say, okay, this fucking sucks. Like, blah, blah, and I bitch, I usually bitch Kathy, blah, 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 I vent it out. And then I'm like, okay, why is this coming? Oh, it's coming to teach me again to surrender in this context, or to tame my ego in this context. And then I find out why it's there and I shift it and I move on. So that's what I'm talking about. But it takes a very long time, you guys. And I'm 45. So you have to figure, like those of you that, Kathy, how old are you?
56.
She's 56. I'm 45. So Kathy has a deeper neural pathway to things than I have, right? Because she's got age on me. So she's had that many more years of having this one dug. So her journey is going to be a little bit harder, because she has to work more with her neuroplasticity than I do, because she's more programmed than I am. Does that make sense? That's why those of you that have littles at home still, I love those of you that are connecting them to spirit. You're passing the baton of belief. You're giving them these spiritual beliefs because they're not getting the social programming and social indoctrination of social contracts. They're getting your truth about spiritual contracts that they can then expand on. So their neuroplasticity is not like when something catastrophic happens, they're going to be able to learn to go into that and shift it quicker. Does that make sense? That's
Yeah.
another reason, like those of us that have like teenagers at home, you know, it's really hard for them because they have 24/7 social programming because of the internet. So they're getting like, we all played outside and such, right? We weren't in front of the news all the time and we didn't have 24-hour access. That's why with them, they get so deeply ingrained so quickly because they have unlimited, they're inundated with it, just right? So like Omri does, she has had a lot of struggle with her spiritual truth and reconciling all of this. She's 21 now, and it can be a constant battle sometimes through her trauma because there's just so much information that they get indoctrinated with so all the time, right? Does that answer your question? I'm sorry, that was super long answer to your question. Does it make sense though?
Makes sense.
What
Okay.
you just said, touching on that, you know, my son died August 2020.
Did he die, Robin?
Well, he passed.
Okay. Choose words that are not painful to you. This is going to be one of your biggest things. He
Yeah.
passed. He passed his body. He passed his earth life. Is that more peaceful to you than he died?
I typically say pass. It's when I'm around people that are going through the same thing, I tend to say died because it's not such a taboo. You know, it's not like a shocking word. But
Yeah.
But for this group that are working on the fact that their children didn't die,
right.
So one of the things that this group is different than any other grief group you're ever going to be around, ever going to be around, is that we use different verbiage because it supports our truth, and that is the whole purpose of being in this space, is to learn to retrain
Right.
your words. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm telling you why I'm
Yeah.
why I was
Cynthia
like,
Wallace. Cynthia Wallace.
what? We have Debbie on the phone. Debbie's on the phone.
Oh, but anyway, when he passed, my daughter, she just snapped. She just completely broke, snapped immediately. Within a month, she tried. And the internet, though, the way that he went was a very public way. And people had cameras all over that bridge, and it was all over the internet. I never watched it.
Good.
My daughter did.
She re-traumatized herself over and
Absolutely.
over and over and over.
and over and over. And she tried to make it like she was out there defending his honor. These cameras need to be taken down, and they do, but they just get put right back up. But as to what you're saying, yes, these kids, I truly believe if my daughter was not so submersed in seeing that over and over and over, and seeing that he had full intention of what he was doing, there was no pause, I think it would have made a difference, I think, with her mental state.
Her mental state, yes. Her exit point, maybe not. Because we write our exit points in. And so part of the truth that I want you guys to kind of dabble in and marinate in is somebody allowed to leave their body, or does anybody have access to that? Because you have all these people that have near-death experiences and they weren't allowed to leave their body and stay gone, stay out of their body. They were either made to come back or they chose to come back. Usually they're made to come back. You know, I know several people that have attempted and have not succeeded and should have succeeded. So you got to really get into, Robin, like, what is your truth regarding that? Because, and I know you're very, very new and you have 2 layers, right? So I get that. So it's going to be harder for you not to get overtaken with the earth aspect of it. But I do believe that, yeah, the internet does submerge them, but I also believe on the flip side of that, that they agreed to come into this space-time continuum right now, knowing that, and that would be part of their journey. Like all of that is planned. I guess all of that is planned. Sorry, Omri had asked me a question. So, and it does affect their mental health. But here's the deal. They also have choices. So they can be socially programmed, inundated, or they can be spiritually programmed, inundated. I send Omri all the time meditations, Abe Hicks lectures. She's like, I'm not listening to that. And I'm like, okay, don't. Keep on social programming yourself, girl. Whatever. Pain feed yourself. So they also, because they get free will, we all get free will when we come into our duality, they get that choice. Just like you said, she kept watching it over and over and over. At any given time, she could have shut it off. Yeah. And this generation is really predispositioned to pain feed. Like that is a theme to these young adult kids. And it's the purpose in it is that there will be a shift at some point, but you can't know the light without the darkness. And boy, howdy, they just really like to get themselves down in it, Yeah. So, but yeah, I would be careful when you think about that stuff, Robin, to not place blame on it, to know that this is part of this generation. It is, especially because they started out without the internet, and then they got to go full into it, like not fully without it, but it was very, very young. It wasn't like it is now.
It was born when they were.
It was, right? I mean, it was. So it's just be really careful not to place blame there. And I would, I know that you're super new, but it's never, ever, ever too early to start seeking. I started doing gratitude, you guys, with seeking your truth. Seeking to not just that, okay, I know my kids are with me. What does that mean? Well, the most simple thing that means is, number one, they're not dead, right? They're not dead, or they wouldn't be with you. They couldn't communicate with you. You couldn't get angel numbers all the time, right?
Which I'm getting.
Which you're getting if they were dead. So your first shift has got to be like, oh, I have to stop thinking they're dead. Now, you can grieve their physical. Absolutely, you can. Absolutely, you can. But you have to start to let go of their soul contract story. Leaf had you can ask Debbie, you can ask Kathy. Leaf has a very heavy story. A very heavy story by the time he left body at 16. I don't dwell on his story because I know he wrote it in that way. I can see it all like a huge puzzle put together. So right now, start letting go of their story and don't ruminate on it, their earth story, and start finding them, the fullness of them in spirit, and leaning into that story. And then eventually you can reconcile the two. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nikki,
Yeah, Deb.
I lost my mom. I say lost, but you know what I'm saying? Because back then I felt like I did lose my mom because I was 17 years old.
And
she had breast cancer. Rodney was 6 months old.
Mhm.
What kind of does piss me off is you think they would have let me know about the afterlife back in the day. That would have saved me a lot of work.
That's not on them, Debbie. That's on you. You had the choice at that point to open up spiritually, and you did not do it.
I never saw nothing.
So why would you see anything when your awareness
Debbie,
isn't
you
open?
wrote that shit in your own contract, woman. You wrote it in that you weren't supposed to know back then.
I know. And then the other thing is, now she's like helping me with mediumship, and which is really strange. But my thing is this: I believe in soul plans, but I didn't really know that I would sign up for my son to shoot himself in the heart because of a horrible person. and be depressed, too, obviously. But, I'm like, so I always thought, well, it's possible that it's free will gone awry, you know what I mean? Not a soul plan. And then I came to the understanding that he was going to die anyways, that all suicides that, in my opinion, that could have been prevented were prevented. I know I was prevented myself personally.
That's one of the things that that was channeled through Jesus, that I hope Robert Schwartz brings up again in his research. Jesus said through one of those sessions, every suicide that was prevented was. So we do have free will, right? We do have free will. So suicide can be a non-written in exit point. I don't think it is very often, but it can be, because we have free will. So you look past the soul plan at that point, and what you have to focus on then is, if they left their body, they were supposed to leave their body. They were allowed and permitted to leave their body, or they would have still been in their body and maybe in a lose-lose contract. So maybe they would have still been in their body, but they would have been in vegetative state, or maybe they still would have been in their body and been, in a wheelchair. So when you're dealing with suicide stuff, what you want to look at is, and they will eventually let you know if it was a pre-written in exit point or not. I know a lot of people I've worked with, they have let them know if it was a pre-written in exit point or not. And some of them were not. I think only one of them actually was not. But what we found was that if they were not in body now, they were allowed to leave their body. And so they did. They were allowed to, and so they did. So
I know,
like you said, Debbie, every single suicide that was supposed to be prevented has been prevented. I know that's a hard truth, guys. I know for those of you that are suicide surviving parents, I know that's a hard truth for y'all to swallow. Like, I get the magnitude of hearing that, but at the end of the day, this is where your truth comes in so very profoundly for you guys, really for any of you, is that whoever's supposed to be in body is.
Nikki, I was going down the road one day, and you know how you get in a little, like, your subconscious, is driving. And so I was in like a meditative state kind of, and I was like, I'm not coming back here. I was having a shitty day. And he's like, you always say that. And I said, that's because you pick jacked up shit. I want a vacation life.
You picked it too. Stop blaming everybody else. You picked it too.
I know, but here's the other thing. So I was doing this reading for this guy that was 23 years old, and he died very tragically by suicide. I mean, like, I think worse than my son, as far as, and he shot himself in the heart. So that's pretty bad. So, but he wound up coming through, and he was like, he said basically to his mom, when you're thinking all your things about me, just picture that I'm driving a red Testarossa Ferrari now. And he's like, I mean, these kids are at good levels.
That sounds like something my son would say. Totally.
It's infinite possibility. Leaf sends all the time. He sends big, sexy, decked out pickups. And now we're like, there goes another one of Leaf's cars he has in a garage over there. And I know that to be true. I'm like, thanks for bragging, buddy.
I didn't even know.
Absolutely true.
I didn't know what a Testarossa is, but it's a Ferrari, $100,000 Ferrari. And
at least
he actually, this kid did have a car, got a bunch of speeding tickets and all that. And before she said that, he said, we don't get speeding tickets over here either.
Right.
Which,
Debbie, something that I want to go back and say to you about when your mom left, all of this happens in divine time, guys. I came into my knowing in 2 years. I had a full paradigm shift by my 4-year mark. I was in full paradigm shift. Those of you that are further out than that, those of you that feel like you have nothing yet, keep working at it. This all comes into divine timing. So Debbie, I mean, think about it. If you had come into your awareness, you're not going to be an 18-year-old medium. Who the hell's going to take that serious? You would have gotten locked up in the loony bin because they thought you were crazy. So your mom coming in to help you now with your mediumship is divinely timed. That's how it was written out. That's how you wrote it out. You, without your ego, that's how you wrote it out, right? So, and I know you're working on like identifying when your ego's gotten tricky with you. So that's one of the ways it gets tricky with you. Sharon, to some degree, isn't that the same thing as leaving from cancer? You know, and this is going to be a hard truth, guys.
Oh.
It's going to be a hard truth. And for those of you that are suicide surviving moms, and Debbie's used to me talking this way, very point blank, not mincing words, so she doesn't take offense to it. But those of you that have not probably heard super hard truth from me, I love you guys, and I am sorry for your pain. And I know there are many nuances and levels to that soul plan. I get that. But at the end of the day, for me, every single leaving body is the same. It has different nuances. There are different levels of things that we each have to contend with. And that's where we get into the nooks and crannies and the cracks and crevices that I talk about. But at the end of the day, we've all been through something traumatic. And the way Leaf left his body is no less or no more than the way that Parker left his body, or the way that Rodney left his body, or the way that Isaac left his body. Okay. So this is where you guys have to get really careful, because there is so much, and I hear suicide surviving parents say this, there's so much stigma. You have to be very careful not to also stigmatize yourself. Okay. Same with cancer. Debbie can attest to this. There's not the stigma of cancer, but it's so well known that you have to be very careful not to concentrate on that being the sole theme of the story 24/7. You have to be able to look at it from broader perspective. And I hope you guys don't take that as shitty when I say that. I really, really don't mean it that way. But for your healing purposes, that's a good thing to remember. We all have a story. We all have a soul plan. It all has different, I about choked on my gum. It all has different nuances that we each have to pull out and heal. Okay. Every single one of us. And Debbie's used to me hearing that. We've talked about that a lot, so she doesn't get wonky with me. Okay, sis. But yeah, so Sharon, back to you. Yes, that it is the same. So that's why when I was talking to Debbie earlier, and that's why, and I know it's a big point of contention, like when you guys read that online and you're like, oh, the prayer saved your, I mean, I know the anger that comes behind that. I've worked in the grief community long enough to know that is a big old, shank to the ribs. Like, oh, well, your kid was so great that God saved it through the prayers, but not mine. Here's the deal. When you pray for your kids, what do you pray for? Their safety, their health, their happiness, no struggle. Guess what? Debbie's prayers were answered. She got all of the prayers answered. In one fell hopping out the body. The kids who do stay in body are still going to have struggle. They're still going to have contrast. They're still going to go through lots of other earth stuff. So really, whose prayers were answered? Debbie's prayers were answered. Isaac has none of that to contend with anymore. He's flitting around the cosmos, doing what he does, living his best life. Another thing you guys can do is, if afterlife feels weird to you, start saying life between lives, because they are not resting in peace over there. I guarantee you, they're living in peace. Big old difference. Leaf, he ain't sleeping over there. When I get there, I'm going to take some sleeps, because I think that heaven sleeps probably have to be the best, amazing sleep there is. Like what we all strive for here. So I'm going to take me some heaven naps. But Leaf is not doing that. Absolutely, he's not. I've literally had to shoo him away from me at 4 a.m. and like, dude, get away. I'm actually sleeping nice. Go do whatever you want to do. So yeah. Good stuff. Are you guys starting to feel a shifting of light to light during this? Do you feel less heavy? One of the things I want you guys practicing doing is being self-aware of where your vibration is at. Okay. So like my vibration today, I'm vibing at about a 7. I consider 7 a good, 7 a good. So check in with your vibration. If you check in with your vibration and then you check in the thoughts and what's going on around you or inside of you, then you can figure out what needs to be worked on so that you can raise your vibration. What happens when you raise your vibration? Your awareness opens even more. Okay. Hold up on your fingers where your vibe is at today. 0 is down in it, growth. I need to not eat, not shower. I need to sleep and cry and do all the things. 10 is like way thriving. I'm at a 7. Where's everybody at today? A 1. Okay. 6, 5, 6, 8. Ooh. 8, 5. You're at a 5, Darlene?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So if you get in the habit of checking your vibration every day, then you follow it up with, okay, where have my thoughts been? What have I been doing? Have I done anything to cultivate joy today? Okay. Maybe it's a purge day. Robin, maybe you're having a purge day, so you're at a 1. You guys also have to allow yourselves, you have to make a choice to allow yourselves. Are you going to allow your vibration to be raised? Are you going to do the work and think the thoughts and do the seeking and the learning and the tools and all the things to raise your vibration? Because inevitably it will be up to you. And on those days that it's a 1 or a 2, sit with it, let it get itself out of you, figure out why it's there, and then you do what we say, intentionally shift. So what mine used to look like was I'd wake up, I'm at a 0, hate, back in the nightmare, hate my life, don't want to be here, this fucking sucks, I'm being punished, all of the things. And I'd cry. And I mean, I snotty cry, guys. So I got snot everywhere, hadn't showered in a week, hair's dreaded mess, and I would just kick and scream and yell and cry and cuss and howl and rock on my hands and knees and roll around on the floor. And I would literally vomit it all out. And then I would get real still and I would breathe. And then I would put on an Abe Hicks death lecture or some Swedenborg or whoever, at that point, it could have been whoever. And I pulled out the pieces that made me feel lighter and I kept feeding them until the next wave came. And then I honored the next wave and I started to intentionally shift. When you get tired of feeling gross, you will intentionally shift. And you always, always, always have that choice. But you don't want to go around it. Okay? Don't wake up being like, oh, I need a good purge. I think I'm going to ignore that today.
It sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting, Darlene, but it's the most rewarding exhaustion you will ever go through. You know what else is exhausting? Being fucking sad every day of your life for the rest of your life. That is also exhausting.
Yeah.
For me, the exhaustion was well worth it because I knew there was light at the end, and that's where my kid was. Right. So I would go through the exhaustion for that rather than the exhaustion of not having him. So it's totally exhausting, but it's totally well worth it. And I'm a testament to that because I love my life. I love my life. I love my life more now than I did when Leaf was in his body. That's a big, bold statement right there, isn't it? I do. And you know why I do? Because it doesn't matter that Leaf is not in his body because he's completely connected to me. He's completely connected to Armory. Our family is whole. Our family is whole. Yeah, it's a big old bold statement. Makes a lot of people mad. I've taken a lot of flack for that statement. But it's the truth. It's worth it. So you decide if it's worth it or not. I know all of you know that your people are worth it, right? And guess what? You're also worth it. Because inevitably, this is what leads you back to yourself. That's amazing. And it's going to be harder work for you, sister, because you're older than me. So it's going to be exhausting, but I mean, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? I just couldn't, for me personally, and like I said, it's the only time in my life being a big old emotional baby and an empath, you know, was good because it lit a fire up under my booty that I was like, oh, hell no. Like, for me, it came down to I had to find a way to stay here and thrive, or I was going to kill Omri, and then I was going to try to kill myself. I was going to
Like
take us both out.
Like a purpose?
Not even a purpose. No, just what brings me joy. What brings me
Yeah.
joy is sitting here looking at these plants that I got addicted to. And now I'm like, what brings me joy today is that I don't have to water them. What brought me joy last year was that I could plant them. And now I'm like, that's more responsibility. So part of this is about cultivating small joy, things in the mundane that you can feel joy out of. Maybe it's lighting a candle and taking a bath. Maybe it's being still. Maybe it's taking a nap. Maybe it's, who knows what it is. But that's part of it. That's actually going to be one of your guys' assignments this week is to, on the daily, I want you to figure out a way to cultivate even a moment of small joy. Sharon knows how to do this. That's why she does her art, right? She helped us all that went to the session yesterday cultivate moments of joy in that because we were laughing and we were very, very present. Grief wasn't up in there, right? Grief wasn't even a party yesterday. I mean, it was messy and I kept thinking, damn, I have to clean all this up now. And I remember now I stopped painting because I don't like to wash paintbrushes. But it was humorous and we were in the moment and we were cultivating small joy, right? So that's what it's about.
And that's a big part of what we do. That's what we do at Warrior Week, our retreat that we do in the summer. We talk about our kids, but we don't talk about the grief of our journey. Not for the most part. Some of us do when we get drunk. We might, talk about the grief aspect
we have
of it.
some drinks there.
But,
there's margaritas on the beach, folks.
But for the most part, it's all about joy. It's going out singing karaoke. It's drowning each other in the ocean. We're just having a good time and just being together, and you come away from it changed.
And that's why Warrior Week is different than most healing retreats. It's a cultivating joy and adventure week. It's not about sitting down doing meditation and yoga and watching presenters. It's different. It's a different thing.
If you're only getting drunk once, Rita, you'll be playing catch up, sister.
No, that's not true. That's about all I can handle is once there, but I get it done. And that's the thing, guys. I'm not now because I'm old, but in my youth, I was a party girl. I grew up backwoods, beer and bonfire. We floated rivers, we drank. That's what we did. There was nothing else to do. And I enjoy going out in my backyard and it's White Claws now because I'm old, but I enjoy the other night. Kate was here. We all went to the beach on Thanksgiving. We came back here. We had several White Claws out in the backyard. Here's the thing. If you don't ever work through your triggers, if I had never worked through my trigger of Leaf dying of alcohol poisoning, you guys, then I would have never, ever, ever been able to enjoy going out and having a drink with my friends ever again. Okay. So, you're all probably like, well, that's probably why he did die of alcohol, Nikki, if you drank all the time. I didn't drink all the time, but that could have been a big trigger. Like Debbie and this is soft face because it's totally different, but like Leaf drank too much Fireball, right? Cinnamon whiskey. He drank it very quick. He had other problems going on. And so the first time I actually left my house at 6 months on his 6-month anniversary, when I still did the count, which stopped sometime in the first year, the first thing I did when my friends took me to the pub was I ordered a shot of Fireball because I thought, I'll be damned if every time I see a billboard or a commercial or I'm out socially and I hear the word, like, I'm not gonna have the power to spiral me into my grief every time. So that was an example of some of the ways I worked my triggers. I walked into them head on, like, I'm taking my power back, right? I need my power to heal. I'm not letting all these little triggers take my power. And I walked into them one by one and made a huge list. And that's part of what we do in the trigger classes. We make a huge list and we walk into them. I got more armed with my armor that you have, Debbie. I didn't have that at first. I was just like, and maybe it laid me out for 3 days, purging it out. But yeah, so that's how I did my own triggers too. All right, guys. So I'm going to post about your assignment being, I want you to try at least one time daily to, I want you to try at least one time daily to cultivate joy in your life. It doesn't have to be something as big and involved as painting. It can be something as small as I'm not going to say go sit under a tree because most of y'all are where it's cold. So I'm going to say taking a nice hot soak in a bath or painting your nails if you're into that, or putting on a dress if that makes your vibration feel better. For Bernie, it's dancing. When Bernie's vibe gets low, she's like, oh shit, I stopped dancing, I gotta start dancing again. She'll grab Tony and they're whirling around their kitchen. That's what she knows through the raising vibration class, that is a quick go-to for her. So when she gets down in it, after she processes it, she gets her butt back to dancing, so figure out what it is. Figure out lots of different stuff. It could be as little as giving gratitude for doing your dishes and feeling warm water on your hands, right? You have to become, because you've known the darkness so profoundly now, you have to become extremely aware of when you're experiencing joy, because it feels very subtle a lot of the times, because it's so much more subtle than the profound raw pain of the darkness. So you almost have to reprogram yourself to feel into it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so that's your assignment. I've tried not to post lots of assignments, but we're in week 3. I gave y'all no new assignments last week, so I'm going to shoot for every other week. I'll post assignments, okay? Other than that, don't forget to do your Zoom takeaways, guys. That is very, very helpful to Kathy and I, because it lets us know that we are giving you guys what you need, okay? Also, there's one more thing. Oh, everybody, on the gratitudes and affirmations, I'm going to challenge you again to get in there and do them, and not just do them, but read everybody else's. We want to figure out ways to raise our vibe and speak our healing words. And this is how we do it. Even if you can just do one of each, one gratitude, one affirmation. Okay. All right. Does anybody have anything else before Kathy pulls? I'm so glad you all made it through the turkey day. Remember, and I forgot to say this, Rhonda posted about it, that the buildup of the day is always gonna not always, but when you're in it, it's gonna feel worse than the actual day. So the fact, Rhonda, you're aware of that now, you can have tools to use that. Use your words. When the anxiety comes, I'm safe. I remember Thanksgiving. The day is not as bad as what I'm thinking about how the day is going to be. All right. And I want to continue to talk about that. So Rhonda, will you remind me to continue to touch on that with our next coaching?
Yeah.
Because that's a big one. That's a big one. All right, guys. I'm so glad you're all with us. I hope that you all feel like you made the right decision for the program, since we've made it through the first big day. Okay. So
Thanks, Nikki.
Rita, did you try tapping for your cellular memory yet? Okay.
No, I have not tried that yet. I've had a really busy weekend, which it's really been, like you said, not as bad as I thought it would be.
Good.
So, but I've just been running like a mad woman. So
It's that time of year.
yeah.
All right. Okay, Kathy, I'm going to post for Zoom takeaways now. ladies, just so you know. Kathy, you're up.
Okay, tonight I'm gonna draw from the Fairy Wisdom Oracle. And I'll try to do a post in the group before next Saturday when I do the Oracle card pop-up, with pictures of all the different decks that I have, so you guys can kind of think about maybe which deck you'd like to have your card drawn from, and we'll just do a bunch of single card pulls for folks and see what we get. Okay, let's see what the fairies have to say today. Ooh, the fairies. This is card number 2, coffee break. I think you can see that pretty well. I'll post it in the group as well. Okay, so coffee break. And I think this is probably going to be taking care of yourself, self-care. Coffee break. The key word is appreciation. Sit back and appreciate your life. Relax with a cup of coffee or tea and make a point of consciously bringing to mind all that you have to be grateful for. Consider your blessings, a place to sit, a cup to drink from, a drink to enjoy. What could be better? Gaze upon your surroundings and see all that is around you. Are you not truly blessed? This fairy would love to have a leisurely cup with you. So often we take for granted what we have. It's time to live in a constant state of gratitude. Gratitude plays a big part in the process of attracting what you desire into your life. Gratitude tells the universe that you are ready to welcome more good into your life. It is a vital part of your manifestation process. To reach the state of gratitude, you need to stop and place yourself into a receptive state of mind. Relax and calmly consider your life and all that you have been blessed with. Whatever thoughts you think are reflected in your body. So it is important to take these small breaks and just sink into serenity. Remember to take the time to relax and rejuvenate. Be sure to notice even the smallest blessings that surround you. A wonderful fragrance on the wind, a butterfly flying by, a baby's smile and laugh, the most subtle sigh. You can find a blessing in everything in your world. Just be open to it. And the chant for this, the affirmative chant is, "Oh, life that lives in all creation, grant me the ability to just be. Help me call upon my inner sight in order to see everything is in my world in its true beauty and majesty. I gratefully abide by your love, so be it." And the recommendation is take a longer coffee break today.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, ladies, take a nice big deep breath in. Exhale. Nice stretches, get comfortable. Close your eyes. Visualize and repeat after me. Archangel Michael.
Archangel Michael.
Archangel Azrael.
Archangel Azrael.
Please come down.
Please come down.
And cut all energetic cords.
And cut all energetic cords.
That drain me.
That drain me.
That pain feed me.
That pain feed me.
That rouse my ego.
That rouse my ego.
And that are no longer for my highest good and purpose.
That are no longer for my highest good.
It's good and purpose.
Please surround and protect me.
Please surround and
Protect me.
In divine white light.
In divine
light.
That leads me to my healing and highest
that
self.
leads me to my
Healing and highest self.
Thank you, and so it is.
Thank you, and so it is.
All right, get those hands moving, get the energy moving through your body. Spirit hands, spirit hands, spirit hands, spirit hands. Woo-hoo. All right, palms up. Eyes closed.
Mm,
I want you to visualize
mm.
and say, I call all of my power back to me now.
I call all of my power back to me
Back to
now.
me now.
I want you to see those beams of light coming
Mm,
in from each other all over the world. If you've been online today, from your family, from your friends, anybody you've been in contact with, see a beam of light that comes from them back to you. They converge in the center in the palm of your hands. You may feel your hands get warm. They may get tingly as those beams of light come together and melt into liquid. As that liquid light flows down into your forearms, we're feeling the body cavity, up through the elbows, into the upper arms. Like lava, it flows in through the shoulders, to the chest space, where it flows up through the neck and into the head, filling the head space as it moves down to the ribs, opens the heart, releasing stagnant energy. It flows down through the upper abdomen. It may open and balance chakras as it flows to the lower abdomen, to the buttocks and the hips. You may feel warm or hot flashes, tingly, floaty, as it moves down into the upper thighs, flowing down to the knees, down through the calves, like slow liquid light, into the ankles and the heels, through the feet, into the tip of every single solitary toe. Step out of your body, turn and look and see the whole thing glowing with your divine power, the power that connects you to spirit, to your kids, to your spouses, to your family, to God, to universe, and to yourself. Feel into the energy. See if you feel warm. Watch yourself glow, glow, and heal. Then say thank you, and so it is.
thank you, and so it is.
All right, guys. It has been a pleasure. I will see you all Tuesday. Don't forget your Zoom takeaways and sleep with angels. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.